Hi, I'm Jessica Marshall from Anderson and Boback, and I'm here to talk to you today about planning for a divorce. You plan for everything else in life. You plan for big milestones, you plan for retirement, you plan for your children's college, and a divorce is one of the most emotional and important things that you may go through in your lifetime, and it makes sense that you should plan for that too. So here are some tips that can help you plan for divorce. First and foremost, you have to make sure that you hire the right attorney. You don't have to hire an attorney who necessarily is extremely aggressive and argumentative, but you also don't want someone who's too relaxed. You don't want someone who's going to overly litigate a case, but you also want someone who can put up a fight if they need to. You don't want to be in a divorce and find out that your attorney is really a better mediator. You need somebody that can do both. And most importantly, you need somebody that you trust and that you can relate well to. Things that you should ask an attorney are, how are they going to communicate with you? Are they email and text savvy? If you have a demanding job and you're not available by phone during work hours, are they available after work hours or electronically? Are they going to send you copies of your court orders? And how will they keep you informed? That can tell you a lot about whether or not it's a good fit. If you're really tech savvy and you hire an attorney who doesn't know how to turn on their computer without assistance, it might not be the best fit. Another important step in planning for a divorce is making sure that you have all of your financials in order. And what that means is save everything that comes in. Every electric statement, every bill for your gas, every internet statement, all of your phone bills, every credit card statement, your bank statements, your pay stubs. Keep it all organized in folders on a computer, preferably, and make sure that you're keeping all of it because there's a good chance in a divorce case that you will have to produce years and years of records. On average, I see 3 to 5 years, and every statement is important. Every check that you write is important. Additionally, if you have access to your spouse's information, it's a good idea to copy it and keep copies of it so that you know what they have if your accounts are not held together. Make sure that you have copies of your tax returns. And if you don't know a lot about your finances, now is a good time to start to ask some questions and try to figure out what's really going on. Discovery can be costly, and one of the biggest expenses with discovery is compliance and trying to get copies of things. So if you're retaining them and you're keeping them organized, you're going to be ahead of the game going into a divorce situation. The other thing that you should really know is what your debt looks like and what your spouse's debt looks like. Digging through that information also can be very helpful, and making sure that those bills are being paid and seeing how they're being paid can be helpful because when a divorce case starts, if there's any animosity and you have to go into court for a hearing to try and establish what the status quo is going to be financially, it's a good idea to know how much debt you have, how it gets paid, when it gets paid, and how it was incurred to the extent that you can find that out too. The next important thing to figure out is, what do you own? And that sounds kind of like a silly suggestion, but you'd be surprised how many people come through my door and they don't know anything about their finances. They don't know what they own. They have no idea what's in their retirement accounts, or perhaps they thought that they had large bank accounts, but their spouse was in charge of them and all of a sudden they're depleted. So it's very important to try and get this information, to have an idea of what's going on, so that when discovery is issued, you know if things are missing, if things are not where they're supposed to be, if there's assets that existed that are no longer there in the production from your spouse. At least then you're in the know and you know what to look for, what banks to subpoena, and what's missing essentially. Another integral part of planning for a divorce is thinking about where you're going to live when the divorce is over. Let's say you have a house and you intend to remain in it. Realistically, what do you need to do to make sure that that happens? Do you need to build your credit by maybe opening a charge card and paying it off every month? Do you need to look into options for refinancing your home? Do you need to find out if maybe a parent or a sibling could co-sign for you on a loan if you can't adequately show employment or income coming in? Finding out exactly what you need is going to help you map out with your attorney what the plan is, what your best case scenario is, and how to get there. If you come into your divorce attorney's office and you say, hey, I want to keep my house, but you haven't worked in 30 years, you may have some issues there because you have to show income. That might mean trying to get a spousal support award in a court order early on. Talking to real estate mortgage brokers can also be helpful because they can tell you what documentation you need, and they can usually do a pre-check to see if you would qualify for a loan for a certain amount. And then at least you have an idea of what you need to do to get to the situation that you want to be in as far as where you're going to live post-divorce. Another issue is if you're self-employed, really keep a good record of your earnings. Don't mix your business expenses with your personal expenses. Don't mix your business income with your personal income. Make sure that your accounts are established, that they're clean, that it's easy to trace where everything is going. Because if everything is all muddled up and mixed together, it can cause a lot of problems and it really can cause a lot of expense. Because especially when your spouse is not involved in your self-employment income, they don't know what they're looking at and they may not trust everything that you say when you're going through a divorce. But they may end up hiring an expert to go through those documents to try and figure out what your income is so that they can figure out what their support should be. So it's really important to make sure that the records are clean and that you're being careful with self-employment income. Another consideration that you should have when you're planning for a divorce is that, especially if you're not the breadwinner, there may be a period of time where you don't have any money coming in. If your spouse, the second you file for divorce, closes your joint account, or if you both have closed it, or if you've never kept joint accounts, you may find yourself in a situation where it takes some time to serve your spouse, to get a petition on file for temporary support, and then it takes time for the court to schedule a hearing. It could be months before you see any money. So it's very important to plan for the fact that there may not be any money coming in if you are not somebody who's working and earning money. Setting some money aside every week, trying to save cash, talking to family and friends about potentially borrowing money are all good things. If you're in a violent relationship and you're afraid of domestic violence and you're afraid of putting money aside or you're not permitted to put money aside, a good idea would be when you go to the grocery store or to Target or Walmart, buy a gift card every time you go for a certain denomination and just stash it away so that you have money for groceries and for other expenses during the pendency and just for emergencies in general. It's always a good idea to plan ahead if you know that you're going to be getting out of a bad situation, and especially in abusive situations, money is held over people's heads often, and it can be a real reason why people often won't leave. So planning for that is important. A final thing to consider is don't give your spouse anything to use against you in court. And what does that mean? That means every email, every text message, every post on Instagram or Facebook, pretend that your judge is going to read it, because they very well may. Discoverable information includes your social media accounts. Make sure that your posts are not public if you are posting, and even if they're not public, you still have to be careful because you really never know who on your friends list or who follows you that might be talking to your ex or to their attorney. Be careful about what you post in social media groups as well. You'd be surprised how easy it is to identify somebody who's trying to post anonymously in a Facebook mom group or elsewhere. And there have been situations I've seen where spouses have actually found out about divorce filings prior to the filing because somebody from one of these groups said something to their spouse who said something to the other spouse. It's nasty. You don't want it to happen. Keep your business off social media to the extent that you can. Keep your emails civil, keep your text messages civil, and just assume that a judge is going to read them. Don't give your spouse any information to use against you later. So I hope this was helpful and that you have picked up some good tips for planning for divorce. If there's any questions, feel free to leave a comment, and thank you for watching our video. Take care.